Hotel staff must see a ton of bizarre stuff every day, with most of them growing a pretty thick skin after being in the industry for any length of time. These 5 biggest confessions of hotel maids are shocking and entertaining, with some being more usual than others. What goes on behind the scenes can also be a surprise, with some staff taking matters into their own hands when they feel slighted, and others being overlooked for prime shifts or room assignments. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Just hanging out. One hotel staffer was interviewed by Trivago and revealed some startling revelations. It seems that staff at hotels are generally expected to go non-stop with very few breaks or opportunities to use the bathrooms. This means that they try to get whatever downtime they can when an opportunity arises, often leading to hotel staff sleeping in the beds of guests even while they're staying in the room. These naps happen on a regular basis, and staff have also claimed to use the guests' toilet and even their toiletries that are left lying around. When they're bored, some of them like to browse through belongings, whether or not they're left out in the open. Searching through bags for interesting items is also a thing, although it does happen much less frequently, especially when it comes to more well-known chains. Even 5-star hotels have these issues, with staff skirting the rules when it suits them. To be fair, using the toilets isn't too much of an issue for us, since they've probably also been used by thousands of people before then, and we expect that the staff probably does clean them afterwards, ensuring that they're smart about when they choose to use the bathroom if they're in the room of a current guest. The sleeping in beds is a little more unnerving, however, as we're sure that those sheets probably aren't washed afterwards and are just tucked back in like nothing had happened. The idea of putting our head down for the night in a hotel bed is already unappealing enough, given the fact that the sheets are generally washed on a regular basis, but the comforter on top usually isn't, meaning it's got a big chance of being filthy without you even being aware of the fact. Add some random person's sweat and face grease, and you've got a combination that we're happier avoiding altogether. The issue here is you can never really know if a hotel staffer spent a few hours snoozing in your bed while you're out and about for the day, leaving us to assume one way or the other. This is basically a case of what we don't know not being able to hurt us, but the assumption that it could happen is a little gross to some. Many hotel staff don't see any issues with this kind of stuff, and we have to agree that it's not a huge deal for the most part, but we could definitely draw the line at using a guest's toiletries because that's really not cool at all when all's said and done. You just never know what's gonna be going on in your hotel room when you're not there, but it should be noted that hotel staff put up with much more disgusting things on a daily basis, so they should be given at least a little bit of leeway. Number 4. Getting even. It should also be mentioned that hotel staff are just people too at the end of the day, which makes them susceptible to getting angry and screwing you over. The ways they can do this are wide and varied, with one story relating how a couple of guests ended up pissing off one room attendant in an unnamed hotel chain. The attendant decided that they were going to make sure that the guests paid for leaving their room a complete mess and generally being disrespectful. We don't know the extent to which they pushed this particular employee, but we're sure that getting even isn't all that unheard of in the world of hotels. There will always be guests that feel superior and will act rude, but most hotel staff are actually used to this treatment and are good at turning the other cheek. If they're caught doing something untoward, they could lose their job after all, or end up being stuck with the worst shifts available as punishment. Both outcomes aren't preferred, and this leads to almost everyone playing by the rules for fear of any repercussions. There will always be a Tyler Durden in every group, however, and we plan on staying safe by treating everyone well. You can never be sure who the troublemakers are or what they'll do to mess with you. The staffer in this story ended up using a fresh towel to clean the entirety of a guest's filthy bathroom, making sure to soak up every little bit of dirt and grime. They then folded the towel up so it still looked new before hanging it up where the fresh towel should be. When the guests arrived back later that day, they ended up using this nasty towel without hesitation, not realizing that they were the victims of a pretty tasteless prank. Again, we don't know exactly what they did to anger the attendant, and we hope that they actually deserved such treatment. But we think that a move like this is pretty low for a hotel employee. Losing your cool like that might make you feel better, but if that guest had actually caught on, then there definitely would have been hell to pay. If we were the victim of an act like that, we know we'd go all out to make sure that the perpetrator was canned. The fact that staff are able to get away with smearing a supposedly fresh, clean towel all over a dirty bathroom is pretty disgusting, and we'd want no part of it. Number 3. Bickering behind the scenes. We mentioned earlier how a staff member at a hotel can be punished with poor shifts, but that kind of thing happens every single week no matter what, which helps to add a lot of stress to the job. Certain rooms are favored over others, with larger suites usually resulting in better rates. They also fight non-stop about shifts, always trying to one-up each other. It goes without saying that there's a lot of competition, which ultimately can end up leading to a bad experience for a guest. If an employee thinks that they got screwed, then their morale can drop, making them less efficient or willing to do a good job. Even the trolleys that hotel staff use are graded, with an unofficial hierarchy that means certain staff members get what they want while others get left behind. This constant fighting and bickering behind the scenes shouldn't spill out into the front of the house, but a nasty work environment will always wear on those who have to put up with it. Look, we get that every job will have aspects that people like more than others, and that someone will almost inevitably end up getting the short end of the stick in more industries than just hospitality. But we have to remember that stressed out and undervalued staff are probably more willing to mess around with their customers. This means that those guests who stay in more expensive rooms will usually get better service, to the detriment of the rest of us who can't quite afford to spend top dollar while traveling. We don't like the idea that a cheaper room leads to less impressive service, but we do get that all employees are not treated equal. Those at the bottom will always have to fight with each other, and that arguing will always lead to a more hostile work environment. We didn't realize just how vicious the hotel game could get, and some of the stories of workplace arguments over petty issues just blew us away. There are also many chains that have had employees speak out and claim that superiors played favorites, with foreigners generally getting pushed around more even if they do better work. So much for equality in the workplace, right? Still, this happens everywhere, so it's not just hotels where you have to be wary of disgruntled or stressed out employees dropping the ball or taking their frustrations out on you. Number 2, why I love salad. The owner of a B&B ended up posting online about a strange journal they found while cleaning one of their rooms out. Their guests had left after a rather uneventful but still pleasant stay. The room was needed soon afterward, which meant that everything needed to be tidied, with anything dirty needing to be replaced as per usual. The owner ended up doing this themselves, as they only ran a small operation and shared responsibilities as needed. They noticed a book that had been left behind and stopped to take a look. They assumed that it was probably important to their recently departed guest and opened it up to see what it contained in order to decide whether or not it could be tossed or should be kept. The journal itself looked quite old and worn, with the words "Why I Love Salad" written in large letters across the front of it. When the owner noticed this, they realized that this was no ordinary journal and that they were looking at something that was odd indeed. The pages were all filled with writing and recipes for many different types of salads. They also included full pages detailing exactly why they enjoyed salads so much, listing dozens of different reasons and backing them all up. Every once in a while, things took an even stranger turn, as the owner recounted that many pages even alluded to how salad must be alive in some way, trying to justify that it was actually a living thing. If this was the case, then we don't know why this person was so into salad murder, as it certainly seems that they had eaten their fair share. This just goes to show that there are a ton of crazy people in the world, although this registers on the tamer end of the spectrum. We're sure that the mysterious salad fan is harmless, and we'd actually be interested in seeing just what made them become such die-hard fans of the appetizers to begin with. We also don't know if the book was eventually returned to its rightful owners, although we're sure that the owners were able to get in touch eventually. Number 1. Chocolate fountain requests. Our final confession comes from a hotel staffer who received a request from a pair of newlyweds that didn't initially seem all that strange. It was for a chocolate fountain to be brought to their room, which is a fairly romantic thing to share, especially while on honeymoon. The fountain was dropped off and everything went well. The guests checked out the next day and were fairly quiet, but staff just assumed that they'd done a little partying the night before. A little partying would have been an understatement, however, as the person tasked with cleaning up after them found soon afterwards. They entered the room to discover that the entire place was covered head to toe in a layer of chocolate. They said that the couple had obviously coated themselves before getting freaky, with the outline of the woman's butt still visible on the bed, table, and roof, with the last location being quite impressive to say the least. They also said you could follow their entire shenanigans step by step by following the chocolate marks. This would have been hilarious, but definitely not much fun to clean up afterwards. We bet this kind of thing happens all the time and that it's probably pretty tame compared to some others, but the idea of a couple dousing themselves in chocolate and then checking out in shame led to this particular story catching our attention perfectly. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. I heard it gives you superpowers in the future or something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.